All right, welcome to another edition of the Sam Sorbo Show. I'm going to get right into it because I have a lovely guest sitting with me waiting to come on. And she has been suffering under COVID restrictions, but not in the way you might think. She is a recent graduate of Earlhamn School of Religion, and she ended up overturning her college's policy for requiring the COVID-19 vaccine. I first heard her on the RFK Defender show, Robert Kennedy Jr.'s show. And I reached out to ask her to come on because she is standing up to a lot of backlash for her stance on freedom. I'm welcoming to the show right now, Cait Corrigan. Welcome.
Hi, thank you so much, Sam. It's so great to be on the show. Thank you
You're
for having me.
Yeah, well, thank you for coming on and for standing strong despite all the backlash that you got. I guess we should just really start right at the beginning. Just start with the beginning of your story, because initially your stance was actually not that far off, according to most of the people that you went to school with, right?
Definitely, yes. So I got my bachelor's degree in human rights studies at Earlhamn College. And then I was in a master's program through Earlhamn School of Religion, which is a branch of Earlhamn College. And so for the 5 years that I was a student there at Earlhamn College and Earlhamn School of Religion, I had a religious exemption that was accepted. I've had a long-standing religious exemption in my life. And so I came into a difficult situation where my school put out a notice on April 1st saying that they were requiring proof of vaccination status to attend graduation. So I just graduated from a master's program in peace and social transformation at Earlhamn School of Religion. And so I came into a very difficult situation where my school was saying, well, now we're requiring this vaccine. And so I basically just let them know of my rights and my freedoms underneath Indiana state law, underneath federal law, and underneath the Constitution of the United States of America. Um, and then eventually my school ended up changing their policy. They changed their entire website from saying that they're requiring proof of COVID vaccine status, they're requiring proof of a negative COVID test, to simply recommending both of these, both the vaccine and the test, which was just wonderful news. I was so happy to go to graduation. So happy that my family would also be able to come. So it was really great. But that
To be
exciting.
clear, sorry to jump in, but to be clear, is your family has your family had had the shots or had anything, or are they also taking a religious exemption, like they're taking a
My
religious
family have
stand?
my family has also had a longstanding religious exemption to vaccines. So we've all had a longstanding religious exemption, which has been accepted to multiple schools. I was homeschooled for the majority of my primary education, from 3rd to 12th grade. I was in a semester school, a Quaker semester school for 4 months in Northern California, which was my first introduction to Quakerism. And I pride myself in valuing and living by the Quaker values, which is why I went to Earlhamn College, because of the values they stand for.
Are you Quaker?
I am not Quaker. I'm not Quaker. So
But but
I
you
was
respect them because, yeah, Earlham is a Quaker school. Yeah.
do, yes. No, I strongly believe in finding the inner light of everyone and finding their own light in God and following their truth, their inner truth. And so this whole
Wasn't
journey,
Richard Nixon was a Quaker, and so was
Benjamin Franklin was a Quaker. I don't know about Richard Nixon. He might be. I'm not sure, but I know Benjamin Franklin was, as well as many of the founding fathers of our nation. They were Quakers, and so and they believed in the right of individual rights and freedoms and being able to practice whatever faith they want to practice. That was the founding of our nation, is religious freedom. So I definitely, my great grandfather, I'm the 8th great granddaughter of the first governor of the state of Connecticut, John Webster. And his family came to America and founded the Connecticut colony in search of religious freedom. Most of my family, I come from a long line of Irish freedom fighters who fought in the Irish Republican Army. And so freedom means a lot to me and my family. And so, you know, especially when it comes to, you know, having the option to decide what we put into our bodies is so fundamental, the right to bodily autonomy. So yeah.
Yeah. So up until the graduation, your school had not had a problem issuing you exemptions. Had you been attending classes in person, or did they just push everybody off online and so it wasn't a big deal?
Well, this past year, due to COVID, all of the classes were online. And then I was going to actually have an in-person class. It was a 2-week intensive course in May. And then once my professor knew that I was not going to get the COVID vaccine, he changed the class from being in person to being online. So I had plans to travel to Indiana to attend class in person. And he said, well, with all of this out in the open, the class is going to be online now to protect my own safety. And so that class totally changed the whole how it was going to run. And then I was actually removed from an online class. So I have my last requirement for my degree was, oh, go ahead. Sam.
Sorry, before we get to that, I want to clarify. So they changed the graduation policy basically for you because you were like, hey, you can't do this. Did you get a lawyer involved also at that point, or was it just through your letters to them?
Well, at that point, they hadn't replied to my last email for multiple weeks. So then I contacted the senator in my district in Indiana, and then I contacted the Attorney General's office in Indiana, and they recommended that I file complaints with the Indiana Commissioner for Higher Education, as well as the Indiana Commissioner for Civil Rights. And from there, both organizations did their own investigations. And so Earlhamn College had to respond to the Indiana Commissioner for Higher Education as to why they were going to be discriminating against me for attending my own graduation.
And so rather than need to reply, they just changed their whole website. Did they notify you of that, or they
didn't notify me of that. They wrote a letter back to the Indiana Commissioner for Higher Education saying that I no longer need to require or show proof of vaccination status. It was very short and brief, but they never contacted me directly. Yeah, it's very, very interesting.
They're such cowards, these bullies. Bullies are cowards. Let's just let it be said for the record. Most bullies are cowards. All right. So they changed their policy. Did you go to graduation? Did you walk in the graduation? What was that like?
Definitely. So Earlhamn College and Earlhamn School of Religion have 2 ceremonies, which is a little bit different than most schools. So on Friday night, they have like a worship service. And then on Saturday, they have the typical graduation where you walk, you get your diploma, etc. So on Friday night, I went to the worship service, and so I'll just back up a minute. I was actually removed from speaking at graduation because I'm not vaccinated, and half of the students in my class were harassing me, contacting, the dean and contacting the president to have me removed. Eventually, they had me removed from speaking at graduation, and so I decided to share what I had written for the past month, a poem that I wrote. I'm a poet. I love writing poetry. And a lot of my poetry is connected to spirituality, to the divine, to God. And so I decided to read my poem during the worship service. And so I got up at the podium and I read my poem.
Oh, so hold on. So the worship service invites people, just whoever would like to come and speak?
Yes. So in Quaker worship, basically, there's a moment of silence, and people have the opportunity to speak if they feel led to share whatever that may be. And so I decided in that moment to share the poem that I wrote and worked on for a month. And so people were very angry about me speaking. And so, I started off by
I'm
saying that,
sorry. That's
yes,
absurd. Like she hasn't gotten the shot, therefore she should be silent.
yes,
What is that? Like, what is that?
yep,
Seriously. Like they're denying your humanity. This is a very, very dangerous, it's a very dangerous ideology that
it
we
is.
can deny a person's humanity in a religious context, in a
Right.
Christian religious context. The other religions do it, but Christianity supposedly doesn't do that. And
Right.
yet they're denying your humanity by being angered by you even opening your mouth.
Yes. Yes, they were very angered. And it goes into this entire culture of canceling people out and censoring them. And we're seeing this constantly, on social media. And so, and I definitely was seeing that in my own university. So it was very disheartening what was happening. And so, I went up and I wrote a beautiful poem. I think it's a beautiful poem about the values of Quaker principles and the values that we have learned through taking classes such as Christian ethics and peace and social transformation.
So you
And
rub their noses in it.
well, I was just speaking my own truth by saying this is what I've learned from this institution. This is what we've all should have learned to
Please,
be
please.
leaders.
Okay, so one of the things that I noticed in your interview with Kennedy is you say your own truth.
Yes.
Let's just say the truth. It's not yours, it's the. And the
Yes.
fact that you're proposing it doesn't make it any less true or more true. It's the truth. Now, if somebody disagrees with the truth, then they can bring facts to disagree. But the truth is, you were sharing this. It wasn't your truth, it was the truth that you were sharing, that this is something that everybody should have gleaned from a religious Quaker education. Don't the Quakers refer to each other as friends?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
We do.
Nixon was a Quaker. And so was the guy who wrote Witness, whose name is just escaping me for whatever reason, because they became friendly actually after
Oh,
he left communism and then eventually became a Quaker. And he did it out of love for humanity. And now you're talking to young people who have been educated in a system that purports to teach Quakerism in its depths, to teach religiosity, Christianity in its depths. And you have people behaving as the opposite of that, which frankly angers me. I can't imagine that you weren't somewhat angered by it, but certainly frustrated. And not only that, you're sharing from your heart, which is something that ought to be admired at least, applauded at least. And yet, no, they just want to shut you down.
exactly. Yes. I mean, I definitely felt like, I went back after this entire experience and I went back and read through all of the Quaker principles that I've learned
Yeah.
and
Did I
valued. And
get them wrong? Was I
yeah,
somehow mistaken that wasn't what I was supposed to do?
exactly. But it seems like, you know, not Quakerism, but at least the institution I was going to values diversity, but only to a certain extent. If your viewpoints are so different from ours, they're canceled. They're not accepted. They're not welcome. They're shunned, and you have to be silent and you do as we say. I was
But then
receiving emails.
we can't say that they value diversity.
Exactly.
They
Yeah.
can't, they're not allowed to hide behind that, right? We value diversity. No, you don't. And I'm living proof, right?
Yes. Well,
Uh,
that's why I asked, how can an institution claim that they promote acceptance, that they promote inclusive people from all backgrounds, that they accept and invite diversity, but then they threaten and harass and shame and shun people that have different opinions than them. You can't be on the same line. You just simply can't. And so that's why, I think speaking what you said, speaking the truth, whatever that truth may be for you or for other people, is so important. And that's what I was taught. That's how the education that I received from Earlhamn College was to do that.
Right.
was to seek out your own truth, to seek out the truth,
Yeah.
and to speak that loud and clear and
You
fight for it.
you didn't learn properly. Shame on you. They only meant to say that. They didn't mean it. They mean to say diversity, but they don't actually mean the word. Diversity equals conformity. In fact, so my book, Words for Warriors, I'm coming out with a poster that goes along with it that is sort of a reiteration of a bunch of the words that they've taken now and they've transformed into a completely different meaning, basically the opposite meaning in a sense. So tolerance is just acceptance. Diversity means conformity. They take these words, they say the words because they sound good, but they're lying because they don't mean them. They mean the opposite, basically. And because you refuse to conform, shame on you. You must be silenced. They did try. They do want to cancel you, and I call it. I've decided now it should be called cancer culture because that's really what it is. It's a cancerous growth in our culture right now to kill part of the body. And I noticed. I'll just say this, and then I need to take a break. I went to my physical therapist who does massage in order to heal people, and this thing occurred to me, I can't massage somebody or different people for 8 hours a day. Like that's just not what I do. And I couldn't do it. And if we were all created the same, then we would all be massage therapists. But thank goodness that we're not, that there is diversity, regardless of whether other people want to believe it or support it or say they support it, but not support it, right? We ought to be grateful for the diversity that we have. You're a poet. God bless you. I'm not a poet, but I sure have a lot of respect for people who can manipulate words and use them as if they were paints and paint a canvas with those words. I think it's phenomenal. My daughter also is somewhat of a poet with her language use, and I find it astonishing. So listen, we're going to take a quick break. Cait Corrigan is with me. This is the Sam Sorbo Show. If you're listening on radio, I will be right back. If you're and for the second part of this interview, I would urge you to go to sorbos.locals.com where it will be posted also in video. If you're watching on video, then you can also go to sorbos.locals.com for the second part of this interview. And I want to ask Cait specifically, what were the things that happened to her after the school surreptitiously changed their policy on her behalf. The people found out about it and they were not happy. You heard about what happened at the church service, but when we continue this interview at sorbos.locals.com, I will ask her about the various different responses that she got from so many of the people who are teaching Christian ethics and behavior. Stay tuned. Hi there, Sam Sorbo here with a big update. I will be speaking at a conference in July 23rd through 25th. It's called the Understanding What is Happening in America and What to Do About It conference in Birmingham, Alabama. I encourage you to come out and join me, Eric Metaxas, C.L. Bryant, and Tom Askell, together with Larry Alex Taunton. It's going to be a great time, July 23rd through 25th. Check the links below. Also, don't forget to subscribe below and like, that's very helpful, and share. And don't forget, if you want more of my great content, please go to sorbos.locals.com, join the community that Kevin and I have formed over there. Don't forget, pick up a copy, your very own copy of Words for Warriors. Also get one for your friend. If you don't want to buy on Amazon, please go to samsorbo.com, samsorbo.com. And I have exciting news. I've actually created a poster that goes along with the book because so many people were asking about it. So check out samsorbo.com. The poster will be coming very, very soon. I'm excited about that. And then I'm also joining forces with Liftable TV. Go to liftable.tv/Sam Sorbo for all this great content, plus a lot more. Liftable TV, all the links are down below. Thanks so much for joining me. This is the Sam Sorbo Show.